Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game of the Year 2021 with me, Ninches96, and we've got with us two very special guests, Dythagoras and GodofHobnobs.
Hello.
Hi, you're allowed to speak.
Thank you. I can never be sure.
We've played a lot of games this year, haven't we? I think I've played like
Yep.
50 odd.
I think probably the most I've ever played.
A mixture of old games, new games, fun games, bad games. We want to start, as we often do, with a one-word description of 2021. Dan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to go with roguelike.
I thought so.
Hadn't thought of it until about 3 seconds ago, but that's what I've gone with.
Yeah, you've been on the roguelikes. I feel like that's going to be a common theme for you.
Yeah, somewhat,
Yeah.
Charlotte, what you got?
Mine is plentiful.
Plentiful.
I've played a lot of games this year.
Yeah, yeah.
I got the Series S, first Xbox, Game Pass. So I've been playing all the games.
Yeah, you have. This is the first year that you've actually had your own Xbox, or your own identity as a games person, rather than just like playing other people's consoles, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's pretty exciting.
I had the Switch, but that
Oh yeah,
sort of
obviously, yeah.
different style of gaming.
Can you remember how hype all three of us were when you actually finally got the S, and all three of us could play the
Yes.
Xbox together?
It was very exciting.
That
And
was
now we do
hype.
it nearly every day, so
Yeah.
worth the money.
I've actually got two words. Sorry, but luckily one of them was basically stolen by you. My first word was diversity, because looking at the games we've played, all three of us have played a huge range of different types of game, different consoles, different experiences. And my second word is evolution, which we'll get back to a bit later on in the discussion. But I feel like looking at the list, we've had a lot of evolution going on over the last year. Cool. Thumbs up. Let's get on with it. We're going to be going as quickly as we can here because we've got a lot of games to talk about. Charlotte, what's your number 10 pick?
Myst. It's a classic.
Oh, that is a classic.
Yeah, and I was very glad they brought it to Xbox.
Yeah, so what's Myst all about?
Well, mystery, adventure, a puzzle-solving game. It's quite chill to play. Gets the brain going. And yeah, it's just a good throwback. So
It is a good throwback. Cool.
yeah.
What about you, Dan?
Let's have a look, shall we? I think I'm going to go with Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, just for the pure length of the name.
I can't fit that in my spreadsheet.
Just call it SWATs. I don't know how this has ended up making the list, honestly, but it's just, I don't know. Again, I feel like it's exactly what it says on the tin. Quite like Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, where it's just a stock market for human and alien organs. It's like fast-paced. You get straight in. It's great fun. It's actually a little bit addicting.
Wow. I'll be really honest with you. I expected that to be higher. You seem to have genuinely gelled with it really well.
No, it's good. It is good.
So my number 10 pick is a game you've probably not even heard of. It's called Maneater. You play as a shark. It's kind of like a 3D version of Feeding Frenzy. You eat a fish, you get bigger, so you can eat bigger fish. It's kind of an Ubisoft-style game with loads of collectibles and stuff. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's kind of got a tongue-in-cheek, almost like Borderlands, the way it tells jokes. And it's like, you're a shark, but you're like a player as well. But it is quite short, and you've probably seen everything there is to see within about 30% of your playtime. But saying that, I did finish it, so it was obviously satisfying enough to earn a number 10 spot on the list.
I won't lie to you. I did have to stop myself from singing.
That's okay. You can...
No, I don't think anyone needs to hear that.
Number 9. What have we got, Dan?
Well, I toiled over this one, but I eventually landed on Back for Blood.
Really?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one.
I have
So
got that higher on
I've
my
got that
list.
higher in mine
you've
as
got the
well,
home
yeah.
list, right? In which case, I will relinquish the floor to Charlotte.
Thank you. I've got Call of the Sea.
Call of the Sea. That's the one
Call of
that
the Sea.
I played a little bit of, right?
I don't know, did you? It's
There
kind
was
of
a puzzle you were stuck on.
Myst-esque. Oh yes, yeah. That is the one. Yeah. It was just a nice, again, chill puzzle solving game. A lot newer than Myst. But I was sort of on the puzzle solving game hype train. Recommended it to my dad. He played it. Don't know how he found it, but sort of thing I thought he would like. Yeah, that's my number 9.
That's cool. From what I saw, the art style at the very least is very cool.
Yeah, it's visually very nice.
I thought
Sure.
from the very limited amount I saw, I thought the puzzles were a little bit too complicated. But
Possibly.
I only saw a very small amount of it, and obviously you finished it, so.
But yeah, I did finish it, and I did go back to get there's alternate endings, and which feels kind of unusual for that sort of game. And whilst I did get stuck on a couple of puzzles, it was a couple of puzzles. Like, I think there's enough in there for it to be satisfying and challenging. So, yeah.
Cool. My number 9 slot is Grounded, which is it's Ark but with bugs. It's kind of a craft 'em up kind of game. It's actually quite satisfying to defend yourself against a massive spider that's trying to eat you. Because they are genuinely scary. The world itself, I think it was the first game that I saw on the Xbox One X, and it looked so good. Like, it doesn't try to be realistic, but it does look very, very realistic. But I stopped playing it because the building is really, really grindy, and I never really felt the need to go back to it after I'd stopped. But for maybe 3 or 4 days, it was an addiction. I don't think I turned it off at all over those 3 or 4 days. So that's how it made my number 9 slot on the list. It's also in early access, I should mention that as well. So they are still updating it, and it's not technically out yet. So I'm willing to give it another go if the full release changes anything. Number 8. For my number 8 pick, I have Minecraft Dungeons. I don't know how you two feel about it, but I feel like it's the sort of game that we could end up picking up one of these days as a multiplayer experience. It's kind of Diablo dungeon loot 'em up, but with a Minecraft skin pasted over it. It's quite easy to pick up and play. And honestly, the only reason it's made this list is because it is really nostalgic, both because of how well it integrates the Minecraft kind of world, but also it is the first game I played properly on Xbox Game Pass. I was sat in the hotel room with nothing to do other than cry, and I thought, I'm going to play Minecraft Dungeons because that will probably suck up some of my time. And it's surprisingly solid. I had really low expectations going in, and it's just surprisingly good. It is quite basic, and the main reason it's this low on the list is because there's a lot of loot grinding, which I really don't like. But it's a really solid game, and I would be more than happy to pick it back up again one day. Charlotte, what have you got for number 8?
I have Knockout City.
You have Knockout City at number 8.
Yeah, at number 8.
Do have that higher on the list.
Okay, I will keep quiet until later then.
That's surprising. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I considered putting it higher, but
I'm surprised. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. We'll come back, I guess. In my number 8 is Immortals: Phoenix Rising, which I did play this year.
Man, I forgot you played that.
Yeah, no, I actually did. It's effectively an Assassin's Creed game, but texture swapped. So that you're playing as a mythological character instead of an assassin. But the gameplay like loop is really fun. You kind of grow in skill fairly quickly. There's some genuine areas where if you go in there too early, you're going to get killed by something that's significantly stronger than you are. And in a pre-Game Pass world, it kept my attention for quite some time. So, yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
It's very interesting you say that, because I was about to ask you whether this holds up in a Game Pass world.
I was going to ask this because wasn't it like one of the only games you probably paid for this year, certainly on Xbox?
Yeah, it is. And actually, it's one of those where I think it's probably damaged my likelihood of going back to it, Game Pass, because for a start, I'd have to go and find the disc. But I definitely did I went through quite a lot of getting achievements and not necessarily 100%ing it, but getting a lot of the collectibles and things. So definitely holds up.
That's really cool, and it's a game that I'd completely forgotten you'd played entirely.
Yeah, and me.
And I think from what I've heard, it is actually a really solid game. You obviously seem to rate it, so
yeah, 100%.
That was number 8. Charlotte, I feel a bit bad. I feel like I've stolen a lot of yours higher up. So what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Slime Rancher.
Oh no, you can talk about that. Talk about that all day long. In fact,
okay.
Let's just not do Game of the
Isn't
Year.
it on your list?
We're gonna spend the whole rest of this video talking about Slime Rancher. It's not on my list because I did play it this year, but it wasn't a core experience this year. I experienced the whole game a few years ago, so I decided not to put it on.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it really. I've not finished it, I would caveat. But very relaxing, nice visually. Still quite different as well. Like, why are they slimes? I don't know, but it's cool. The slimes are quite cool in and of themselves. There's a cat slime, so that always is a winner for me. A tabby slime, I should say. Yeah, just really relaxing. And yeah, that's it really.
It is such an excellent game. Slime Rancher 2 comes out in 2022, in theory.
Okay.
Yeah, like you say, it's really different. I kind of went into it thinking it would be more like a generic farming kind of game, a probably not as much as Stardew Valley. But yeah, I went into it thinking it was completely different, and it ended up being a bit more about exploring than it was about actually rearing the animals, the slimes.
Yeah, I quite like that though.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's more to it than I anticipated as well. Like there's some mini games in there.
There is, which weren't in there when I played it.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Although I have played it this year and played them, but yeah. Dan, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is 12 minutes.
Oh.
That is higher on my list, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay. In which case I'll relinquish to somebody else.
You will be relinquishing to me. My number 7 pick is a game I don't think you even know I've played, because I only added it to the list today. Exactly 6 days ago, I played Metroid Dread. I mean, I won't lie to you. I picked it up because I was expecting to spend Christmas on my own, and I thought Metroid Dread will carry me, and it does. It's really good. It's effectively a 2D Metroid, but with stealth mechanics sort of in the mix. The movement and the combat feel so good. It reminded me something that I think we've all maybe not forgotten, because we have our own opinions on this, but I definitely undervalue the Nintendo polish that they put on some of their AAA games. And I think it's something you don't get with Xbox games as much, where from everything about the game feels really, really polished and well put together. It's got some wicked cool cutscenes. It's decently challenging without being over the top. I haven't finished it, occasionally it's a bit hard to navigate. The map is not great, although I realise that's kind of the point. And I'm on one like boss battle that's really, really frustrating. But I feel like if I finished this game by the time we recorded this, it could be a contender for Game of the Year. But because I haven't finished it, it's staying at number 7. And the Emmy encounters are terrifying. So Emmy is this robot, and it will stalk you throughout certain areas of the game, and it will stalk you. And it's kind of stealth mechanics. The idea is if it spots you, it will start chasing you. If it catches you, it will instantly kill you. So you have to be really careful. You have to kind of plan whether you want to try and hide, and if it sees you, you're dead, or if you want to just balls to the wall, I'm just going to run and hope that I can escape it. It's really satisfying. I don't know if either of you have any opinions on Metroid Dread.
I haven't played it, and I don't know anything about it until now. So no.
I only knew you'd played it because I've been aggressively breeding for shiny Vulpix and saw that you're online.
Yeah.
Playing Metroid Dread. But that's my only interaction with Metroid Dread.
Yeah, I feel like the Metroid series generally. I mean, you play Samus in Smash, right?
I mean, yeah, that is true. That is true.
I've played very few of the Metroid games properly because there hasn't been one for like 15 years. Certainly not a good one. So I thought I'd pick it up, and it's really good. I thoroughly recommend. But yeah, that's my number 7. We're going to take a quick break from this top 10. Charlotte, you've specifically asked if we can have a dishonourable mention section.
Yeah.
What game is your dishonourable mention?
I was just very disappointed by a game this year. Maybe that it was unfair of me. I didn't spend very much time playing it in the end, but it was just nothing like what I expected. I'm interested to know whether Dan's worked out what it is. I think he probably has.
I definitely haven't.
I think it's Microsoft Flight Simulator.
It is.
Oh.
It is.
Yeah.
Big disappointment for me. I was expecting it to be quite relaxing, like I can just fly to random places. Like I love navigating stuff. See the world, thought it would look amazing, and it was just too complicated to get into. To do that, to get to that point, I think. I don't know if the game is like that eventually, but I feel like it needs a chill option, you know, where you don't need to learn the ins and outs of how to fly a plane. And maybe it's on me for not understanding the simulator parts well enough. But yeah, it was a big disappointment.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's I tried it, and essentially I managed to fly over where I live and where I went to uni, and I was like, that actually looks really cool.
You got
but
further
it took
than me.
hours to get to that point, and I was just so sick of it by then.
I started at Charles de Gaulle. I was like, I'll just find the Eiffel Tower. It's literally like it can't be that far, and it was just a nightmare, and it's so slow.
Yeah.
And I gave up.
I had planned for this to be an honourable mention, but it is in fact technically a dishonourable mention anyway. It's Pikmin Bloom. Now this is a mobile game, and it's effectively Pokemon Go, but with Pikmin. And don't get me wrong, I love Pikmin. And as you well know, any excuse I have to make Pikmin my game of the year, I will take. But Pikmin Bloom doesn't do anything exciting. It is effectively Pokemon Go, but worse, because there's only like 8 types of Pikmin, rather than hundreds of Pokemon. And the monetization in it is gross. I've played it. I would say I've played it a good amount, and I've got maybe 1% of the amount of money it would take me to buy the next upgrade. It is disgusting. And it just doesn't have the same polish as Pokemon Go. But I'm still hopeful that they will add stuff to it and make it flesh it out a bit more in time. And I guess while we're here, I don't suppose either of you have Pokemon Go on your lists, but Pokemon Go has been is a worthy honourable mention, I think, for all of us. Mostly me, but we have played a decent amount of Pokemon Go this year, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Good excuse to leave the house and walk around in a pandemic-esque world. So yeah, those are Dan. You don't have an honourable or dishonourable mention.
No, which is odd because normally I'm the naysayer.
Yeah, look at you, all optimistic. Good on
Yeah,
you.
It's odd, isn't it? But I just wanted to add on Microsoft Flight Simulator because I did basically see most of your kind of interaction with it. I almost wonder whether it would have benefited from a Forza Horizon style like showcase opening that took you through like a bunch of highlights and got you used to controls and things. I think it drops you in the deep end so fast.
That is an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, you have to do about 10 lessons before you can fly anywhere, and then you're just flying around in circles in this one place, and then... Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needed this is what we have to offer, and, you know, this is where to start, and that kind of thing, because it's just very daunting to boot it up and just be told, fly this plane, you know.
I think what we were looking for, and like you say, maybe that's on us, but what we were looking for was, like, Need for Speed, but with a map, whereas what we got was F1 2020, where it's like, it's so realistic,
Yeah.
So all we really wanted was Google Maps, but with like a cheap little biplane that you can fly around.
I genuinely believe it's worse than, because I picked up F1 2020 this year, and it wasn't as hard to get into as that.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So, crazy. Yeah.
So congratulations, Dan, on being the optimist.
Oh, wow, that's good.
You could have a medal for that. I'm proud.
Thanks.
We're on number 6. Dan, what's your number 6 pick?
My number 6 pick is Prey.
Prey. Oh.
Yeah, Prey. Made by Arcane, who made Dishonored and all that fun stuff. I think it released a few years ago now. I think it was like 2017, the original release.
I think it was a few years after Dishonored. It was somewhere between Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But it's like space station. It's kind of horror-esque. Certainly the first few hours of gameplay, when you're getting used to what's a mimic and what's not, is pretty terrifying. It's quite a lot of swearing at inanimate objects, but the choices in the game and the power sets are really interesting. The story is actually really interesting. It's actually got Benedict Wong, who plays Wong in the MCU in it.
That's pretty cool.
And there are a bunch of different endings based on choices that you make. Some of those choices you don't even realise you're necessarily making. So. Yeah, it's just a really good experience to go through from start to finish. I'll probably go through it again and make some different choices and see how I'm assessed at the end of the game based on that.
Yeah, it's always on my radar, Prey, just because it's Dishonored, right? But spoofy.
I mean, yeah, to some extent that is true. Like Dishonored, you've got kind of branching choices and things. The way you play impacts the story. I think I actually prefer the setting to Dishonored purely because space. But
space is great.
I think it's that's a personal preference thing, really.
Charlotte, what's your number 6? No, hang on, I'm going next. Sorry, I forgot that. My number 6 is The Elder Scrolls Skyrim brackets 10th anniversary, because they did technically re-release it as a 10th anniversary set, which means it is a new game this year. Not that that's relevant for our list, but yeah. And I mean, what do I need to say? It's Skyrim. Does anyone need to hear why Skyrim's good?
I do. Tell me why Skyrim's good.
It's just good. There's dragons. Like, you know. I have played Skyrim before when it first came out ish, and I played it to my own fulfillment, to my own completion level, and was fairly satisfied. But I really did not get what everyone was so hype about, because the loading screens were so immersion breaking, and I hated them with a passion, and they were like minutes long for some of them. And the Xbox One X, Xbox One Series X, Box One, fixes that. The load times are seconds. I've not read a single piece of lore about Skyrim on this playthrough because I don't have time. The load screens are too short to read the lore that they've put in those bits. However, it's an old game anyway, so it has some bugs. It is in fact quite buggy still. I would have liked it if they fixed some of them. And I'm always over encumbered. Always. I just want to be able to walk, but no. Apparently, carrying 3 dragons worth of bones and scales is too much for a poor old cat. Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, Dan, you've played a lot of Skyrim in the past.
Yeah.
Tell me,
I think
how does one stop being over encumbered?
well, the key thing is to not be a hoarder.
Yeah, but I can remember first starting Skyrim, and I picked up ladles and tankards, and I thought, well, there must be a reason I can pick this stuff up, right? No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
No, not in the slightest. So one thing to get around it, I don't know, you may already be doing this, but if you've got a companion, you can literally get them to carry most of your stuff
yeah,
up
that's
to
true.
their own carry weight.
I did have
So
a companion. Lydia disappeared on me.
Ah, yeah, that can happen. I turned
Yeah.
her into a chicken once. That
Yeah.
tends to be an irreversible step.
Oh yeah, and I might as well tell this story. You've already heard this. There's a dog called Barbaros, and you're effectively tasked with whether you want to kill Barbaros or save him. And I really wanted to save him, but it was so flippin' annoying that it made me want to kill a dog. And then even worse, it didn't even let me kill the dog because a bug meant that I had to save him in order to complete the quest. Otherwise, Skyrim would be a lot higher if I was able to kill that dog.
10 out of 10 can't kill the dog. No, 0 out of 10 can't kill the dog. That's
Well,
the
6 out of 10 can't kill the dog.
one. Oh, yeah, okay.
Charlotte, now I will allow you to do your number 6.
Thank you. It is Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley, yes. Do go on.
Firstly, I would like to say I don't know why anybody would play Animal Crossing over Stardew Valley.
All right, so I don't have enough
understand it.
subscribers to be able to afford you to diss Animal Crossing and lose a bunch.
But it has everything Animal Crossing has, but more.
Yeah,
You know.
and we've
like,
said
so
this
much
before.
more.
It was made by one bloke.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? That's just baffling. And I played it earlier this year on the Switch.
Was that this year as well?
I think it must have been.
Wow.
I don't know. I've lost track.
It was. It's on your
It
list.
was, yeah.
Crazy.
And then they put it on Game Pass, and now we get to play it together, which is cool. So, yeah, it's pretty chill, which is a theme for me at the moment. I think it's one of the reasons Knockout City was lower down my list at the moment. And yeah, it's just there's so much in there to do. Like I say, I think it's the essence of Animal Crossing, but more.
Yeah,
So,
it is a tremendous game. For a similar reason to Slime Rancher, I haven't got it on my list because it was prominent on my list a few years ago.
yeah.
But it is a tremendous game. And being able to play it co-op elevates it to a whole new level.
You get to play with me, which is obviously what you would
Yeah,
needed.
I mean, I haven't had to do a single bit of fishing all year.
That is true.
We are halfway there, ladies and gentle peeps. Charlotte, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Subnautica.
Yeah, I've got that later on, I'm afraid.
No problem, as expected.
Yeah. Hence you went first there. Dan?
I'll jump in, yeah. So mine is Monster Train.
Monster Train.
Yeah, we like a bit of a roguelike. I mean, that actually might be the first roguelike I've mentioned, thinking about it.
I would argue Back 4
But the
Blood
next
is a
5
roguelike.
will be.
Back 4 Blood is quite roguelike, to be fair.
But yeah.
No. Appreciate that. No, that's so Monster Train, yeah, roguelike deck builder. I've got a lot of mileage out of Monster Train, way more than I thought I was going to be honest. You've got a lot of control over what you can build, how you build it. The runs feel quite different. Besides some bugged achievements, I haven't got really a bad word to say about it. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I get the impression I'm not going to be able to talk about this, but my number 5 is Knockout City.
You're not going to be allowed to talk about this now.
Ah, okay. Well, that was quick.
That was a very quick one, wasn't it?
Yeah, in fact, we'll stay in the same clip. I've got an honourable mention to go here. Xbox Game Pass. What a service.
It is excellent.
Absolutely.
Now, we've... A bit of background. Me and Dan have played the Xbox for a while, but this took a bit of a hiatus, like 2017-ish?
Yeah,
2016, you said. Didn't you look it up the other day?
2017, yeah.
Yeah.
2017.
Effectively, when the Switch came out, and we had 2 to 3 years of being religiously Switch players.
Yep.
Now, certainly, for you, it's a Pokemon machine. For me, it's more or less a Pokemon machine.
And for me, I haven't really touched it since we moved house in October. But we have now done Ring Fit like once.
Yeah. Game Pass changed the way we play games forever. How many games on your list do you reckon are on Game Pass? So far, all of Charlotte's, all of Dan's, except Immortals Phoenix Rising, and probably about 70% of my list is directly from Game Pass. It has been... Game Pass is the game of the year. And I think it's especially important to talk about because Microsoft really dropped the ball a few years ago. They were so bad. Do you remember the E3 where all they talked about was how you can watch telly on the Xbox?
So they tried to market the Xbox as a sort of all-media machine. And I don't think they understood who watches E3.
At all.
And it's not 70-year-old Doris who's looking to watch reruns of Downton Abbey. It's people who actually want to play some games. But they seem to have...
They have 100% come back. A couple of years ago, their E3 was basically... They did some minor announcements and stuff coming a long way in the future, like Halo, etc. But what they did was they said to everyone, we now care about games above everything else. For the first time in a long time, we are going to be focusing on games. We're buying studios. They bought Bethesda. They bought indie studios. They bought Minecraft. And since then, the Microsoft has become, I would argue, the titans of gaming again. The only slip-up they've made is that, out of their control, the new consoles are impossible to find still.
They are. That is a drawback.
But the same is said for the Switch. The same or was for a while. That's just the way things are at the moment. And the fact that we can just decide one day, Elder Scrolls Online is on Game Pass. Shall we all just download it and give it a go? Mind-blowing.
Very, very good value.
And it makes certain games, like Metroid Dread, with initially a $60 price tag, suddenly you're like, well, I could spend $60 on that, or I could buy a whole year of Game Pass. A whole year. It's crazy. Honestly crazy. Any other thoughts on Game Pass?
No, only to reiterate that, yeah, it's the sort of value is unbelievable. It's almost you have to try and convince people that there isn't a catch when you tell people about it.
Yeah. It's managed to convert, I think, everyone I know from either PlayStation or Switch to Xbox.
Yeah.
It's an indie machine, which Charlotte has shown off very well today, with stuff like Subnautica, Stardew Valley, Slime Rancher, random puzzle games. It's a AAA titan with your Skyrims, your Halos, your Forza coming to Game Pass day one. Does everything. Absolutely everything. So yeah, that's our honourable mention for this segment. Xbox Game Pass. Number 4, Dan, take it away.
My number 4 is Knockout City.
Yes, we've all picked it. Hooray! We can actually talk about it.
We can talk about it.
It's always good, isn't it? Yes. I guess I'll since I put it high stuff.
Yeah.
I'll start
Kick us off
on it. So it's a dodgeball game. That's good enough in and of itself, to be quite honest with you. But there's a lot good to say about Knockout City. Like, you can pick it up, just play it. There's not a great deal of mucking about before you really get involved. The kind of gameplay loop is pretty satisfying. We've definitely played it, especially over the summer, I think, for sort of quite some time, sort of in one go. And that's no accident, really. It's because it's pretty addicting feedback loop. It's not without its issues. 100% it's been struggling a little bit with player base, I think, recently, and all of the design decisions are perfect. But I actually think that on the whole, it's a pretty good experience.
Yeah, Charlotte, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I was harsh on it when I put it on my list. I think there was some recency bias. It's been a while since I've really played it. I know we've played a couple of games recently, but when we did play it, we played the hell out of it. Like, we played that non-stop.
Yeah.
And it was really good fun. Like, we had a lot of laughs playing it. A lot of anger too. I fully accept that it can be very, very frustrating. And that's probably, again, another reason why it's slightly lower on my list, because I'm feeling the chill games at the moment. But it is really good fun, and I think it's nice that it's a sort of Apex Fortnite style game, but it's not a shooter. It feels like doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you put it at number 8, correct?
I did, yeah.
And it's number 4 for Dan, so it was number 5 for me. And yeah, like you say, it's a really novel concept. I've called it Dodgeball, or Splatoon, but Dodgeball, because I feel like it's got that same energy that Splatoon has, where it's like, we want to make a competitive shooter. How do we do it in a way that no one's done it before?
Yeah.
And a couple of other things. It's really well monetized. I think it's free to start up to a certain level, but obviously it's with Game Pass as well, which is a bit weird. I know that caused some problems for you, Charlotte, on the PlayStation.
It did, weirdly, because I paid for the game on Switch, and then I got the Xbox, so then I could play it for free on there. But it was a good enough game that I was willing to do that, even though I had already played it and already had progression on the Switch. I would say I don't know how it is now. It was very, like, the quality was very poor on the Switch.
I think that's pretty standard across any game that's multi-platform.
I mean, yeah, you probably wouldn't want to play cross-platform from the Switch against people on other consoles. But it was a good enough game that I didn't mind just starting again, basically. So if I even had to, Dan, do you remember whether my progression carried on? Because it's EA account. Yeah. So in fact, that was pretty good actually.
Just Dan, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, your progression did carry over. Yeah, sorry, muted.
The other thing I've got written down, some of the special balls are really annoying, as we found out last time we played, and the game mode rotation and the way it modulates, like 2v2 or 3v3, 4v4,
yes.
That's really annoying.
Very frustrating. There's times where we've wanted to play with like 4 people and we just haven't been able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what tops off everything that we've talked about Knockout City, can we all agree how satisfying it is to bonk someone on the head with a dodgeball?
So satisfying.
Yeah, that never goes away.
Never
No matter
goes
how many
away.
times you play it, it's still fun to do that.
The noise is great, and I have a little noise that happens when I hit someone as well, like when I KO them, that is even more satisfying. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got the lobby sort of sandbox to practice in, and you get that satisfying bonk, I think is what propels it. I think Splatoon would do really well to actually include your lobby being just a random stage, and you can just luck about and see what you can do.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I agree. It might come with Splatoon 3.
Maybe.
But yeah.
So that was Dan's number 4. Charlotte, what's your number 4?
My number 4 was an accidental number 4 because it has a number 4 at the end, and I'm incompetent. But I'm kind of happy with where it is. It's Forza Horizon 4 specifically.
4 specifically?
4 specifically.
Okay. I'm going to ask now, is Forza Horizon 5 further up on this list, or did you choose 4 over 5?
Forza Horizon 5 is not on my list.
Wowzers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on. Horizon.
I think the reasoning is I played Horizon 4 earlier this year, and absolutely loved it. At this time, I didn't even have my own Xbox, so I was playing it on Dan's. And it was just really good fun. Like, you could just chill and drive around, but then you have the races. There's a lot of stuff to do, like to complete. You've got story modes. You've got cars to collect. All sorts of stuff like that. And I absolutely love games where you get to explore. So exploring all the roads was awesome. And obviously it's Edinburgh, so it's great to drive around. And I think the reason this tips it over the edge for me compared to the new one is, one, somewhere I know it's cool to drive around and be like, oh, I've been there, I recognise that, or this looks British, just because you live
This looks British.
cool. Yeah, it's just pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I loved, driving around Mexico is cool. I think possibly just because I played Forza 4 this year, and then I was really excited for 5 to come out and for us to all be able to do it together. Actually, it's not been that easy for us to do together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the only real difference between 4 and 5 is the location. So because I've already played the hell out of 4 this year, I've not gone as into 5 so far. So that's my reasoning.
Can I just ask, Dan, do you have Forza 5 still to come? Or did you not include it?
It's not included.
It's not on my list either.
Ooh.
It was a buggy mess.
Yeah, it was.
It still is. A lot of... at its core, it is a good game. But a lot of the things it promised, it just doesn't deliver on.
I just think, like, if you're going to play Forza, you could just download Forza 4 now and it'd be fine. So just go and play that.
Yeah. I think that's easy to agree on.
Yeah.
And I know Fenton was talking a little bit about how busy the UI is and how much, like, it tries to get you on that dopamine kick. If you've leveled up, your car's leveled up, you've got this milestone, that milestone, wow! And it just doesn't... I don't think it works. It's
It
fun.
is quite in your face. I think 4 was similar though in that sense.
True.
I think there's a lot of that still then.
I just feel
But,
like it's
without the
easier to
bugginess.
forgive in a game that functions.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And ultimately, I can change the radio in a lot of games. I can't change the radio in Forza Horizon 5. Apparently,
and I have
it's mapped to
permanent
right on the
quest
D-pad.
stuck on the screen.
There's
It's
just
annoying.
issues with it. But I'm presuming I'm not going to get a chance to talk about this, but my number 4 is Back for Blood, because I thought that'd be fitting to be my number 4 pick.
Apologies, no. That
Yep.
is higher on my list.
That is fine. We will move on to our number 3. Away we go, Charlotte.
Yes, my third is 12 minutes. Dan and I sort of played this together. I don't know how much of it I physically played. Do you, Dan?
Only when I went to the bathroom and you nearly
Hey,
wrecked the whole thing.
Okay, that's harsh. It's so good.
So, for the benefit of myself who hasn't played it and anyone else who hasn't played it, because it's a fairly niche game, what's the deal?
So very story driven. Very very short game actually. We played it in one sitting, didn't we?
We did.
Did it take you 12
Um,
minutes?
It took us a lot longer than 12 minutes.
Okay.
Dan, how would you describe it?
Well, it's, very story driven. It's a time loop situation really. It's it doesn't really tell you anything about how the game's supposed to run. It just sort of drops you into the environment and says work it out. And you just got to try and escape the loop. The information that you learn in previous loops, the game fairly fluidly brings back into like future loops. So if you see a phone number, you don't have to rote memorize it like I did. The game will remember it for you. So there's lots of interesting bits like that.
Yeah. For me, it was just so nice to we sat down and we played it together, and we just got so into it, like watching a TV program. But yeah, you're playing it, you're trying to work it out. It's really intense. You're like, oh my god, am I about to kill this person? Have I screwed everything up? Twists and turns. I think we were shocked at some points. We were like, oh my god. Really good fun to just sit there and play. Yeah, loved it.
And how long did you reckon it actually took to finish?
I can't remember. I think we must have been there for a couple of hours.
A few hours. Well, we haven't 100%ed it, so there's still a fair bit.
Yeah, you've got multiple endings and things, haven't you?
Because this is a discussion we circle back to every single year about how a game doesn't have to be 1,000,000 hours to be worth playing.
Nope.
It can be, with stuff like Stardew Valley being like an evergreen title, Skyrim, endless, but you can get a really solid experience that is Game of the Year worthy. I mean, it's your top 3.
Yep.
In a couple of hours sitting, which is tremendous. Dan, what's your number 3?
My number 3
Yeah.
is Control.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Which is a single player experience where you get all sorts of weird voodoo powers. It's mostly the setting and the story for Control. It's, again, very little in the way of explanation. It just throws you in and it's like, yeah, please deal with everything that's going on here. But I was playing it quite obsessively, I'd say, because I was like, oh, I need to see what's happening next, kind of thing. There is a fridge that somebody has to watch at all times. I just find that interesting. There's a guy, so just to give a little bit more context, the facility sort of undergoes a big crisis, and so the guy who's on fridge duty, which is what it's called, has been in there for like 24 hours watching this fridge.
Oh no.
And when you find him, he's like, please let me out, like I need to take a break. And before you manage to get him out, he tries to get out the door himself. and the fridge doesn't take very kindly to that.
Oh no.
So that's Control.
I feel like I need therapy just from hearing about it.
That's fair.
Gosh, I mean,
Where'd you go from there?
well, my number 3, and I'm a bit hesitant because it hasn't come up on either of your lists, and I don't know if that's because you're not putting it on there or because it's still to come. It's a bit more jolly than that. New Pokemon Snap.
It is not on my list.
Okay, cool. It's not on yours either, right, Dan? Because
No.
you've got about 12 roguelikes to fit into 2 slots still. New Pokemon Snap is a sequel 20 years in the making. And it didn't deliver, sadly. It's got lots of improvements over the original. Huge, diverse roster of Pokemon, and the graphics and the Pokemon models and all of their interactions are brilliant. And the first playthrough, I described as purely magical. Every single moment that you're exploring new territory or taking a new path, seeing new Pokemon, unbelievably amazing. But you have to do the runs quite a few times, and they do become repetitive really quickly. The online wasn't anything exciting, which it could have been, and they could have made a lot more improvements over the original that they just didn't. And two of my biggest gripes are that some of the interactions were ludicrously difficult to trigger, and that's including looking them up. There are some that I looked up and I was like, right, I know how to do that, I just can't do it. Which meant there were chunks of the game that I just didn't see because I couldn't get that one Blastoise to eat the apple so that the Glaceon later on would be there so that I could hit it with a ball so that it would be then. It's just too complicated. I just want to take pictures of the Pokemon. And they did free DLC, which I never felt the need to play. It's just more of the same. Which is fine. You know, it was a really, really perfect experience the first time. For the first week or so, it was perfect. And that's why it is in my number 3 slot. Because while stuff like Back 4 Blood, Knockout City, those sorts of games are solid, like, A-tier games for a while, Pokemon Snap was an S-tier game for a short period of time, which I think is worth commending it for. But you didn't put it on your list. Why not?
Yeah, I enjoyed it for sure. But it did last not very long, which seems silly coming after my number 3, which lasted 2 hours. It did last longer than that. I played it for quite a while, but I didn't play the original. But I do feel like once you've played it for a good few hours, you've done it. I also haven't played any of the sort of DLC.
I mean, spoiler alert, you don't have to. You've seen it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like it offers as much. It hasn't really seared itself into my memory very much. You know, I had to remind myself that I played it.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about
Before
it
we
up
came
until
on, I had forgotten.
this point.
And even when I remembered it, it wasn't like, oh, that was great. Like, it was good, but yeah, just not in my top 10.
I said this a little bit before we started recording. At the time I was playing it, this was uncontested as my game of the year. There was no point in my brain where I thought anything else could be better than it. And then a week later, I'd forgotten it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I think my top 3, all of them have that similar sort of high heights, but not necessarily consistent. Which we'll of course go on to. Yeah, Dan, do you have any thoughts on Pokemon Snap?
Only to echo what's already been said. I think I don't think it's necessarily like bad in what it does. I feel like the on the rails element of it is okay if it doesn't feel laborious to keep going back into the same level over and over, but it does.
And I get it.
To do that.
It would be really hard to do that off rails and have that same level of care and detail in all of the different interactions and the models and stuff. But they could have done it, I think.
Yeah.
So that's number 3. We're nearly done, guys. We're nearly done. I've already forgotten who we said would go first. I think it was Dan.
It's
yeah,
me.
Dan.
Yeah.
Number 2.
My number 2 is Slay the Spire.
Okay. So that is there. That is there.
It is there. It is there. You can stop worrying. So, much like Monster Train, it's got the roguelike deck builder element to it. And the gameplay loop is really satisfying. I think it was my first roguelike.
It could have been
why it's ended up at number 2 on this list. Yeah, I enjoyed playing all the different characters. I'll be honest with you, I'm playing it right now. Yeah, I haven't really got a bad word to say about it, quite honestly.
It's really good.
Yeah, you've played it on both, haven't you? You've played it on.
I played it a little bit on Xbox, but it was mostly on the Switch last year.
Okay.
It was in my top 10 last year. I can't remember how high. Probably about 4 last year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just like the quintessential. It's certainly the quintessential deck building roguelike. I'd say it's a really good introduction to roguelikes in general.
It could have been the first ever deck building roguelike.
It may well have been, honestly.
Certainly the first one that I came across. It's got loads of different interactions. You can do different ascension levels. You can do the four different characters, each with 2 or 3 different kind of archetypes, minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's kind of evergreen, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
Charlotte?
Oh, yeah, okay. Mine is The Forgotten City.
Forgotten City, okay.
Yeah, so one I played quite recently, it was good enough that I was sat there playing it and Dan would just randomly turn around and be like, oh, I've gone distracted and watching what you're doing. Sort of getting involved, talking about who we think is guilty and what's going on.
This is the one that got you 1 billion achievements, right?
It did get me 1 billion achievements, yes. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. You've got choices, you're sort of trying to figure out what's going on. Still relatively relaxing to play. There is a little bit of, I don't know if combat is the right word really, but some sort of fast-paced moments in it. Yeah, multiple endings. The final ending was quite surprising and really cool. Don't want to give it away, so I'll just say that. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I recommend it. Harry's played through it now. He really enjoyed it. It's not often we agree.
Oh yeah, I forgot he played it. Yeah.
But he played through it and he really enjoyed it. So yeah, really good game.
What? So is it like a point and click kind of Professor Layton or
first person run around? Basically, it's set in I want to say ancient Rome,
okay.
but you're sort of in a
Forgotten City.
I don't want to give away too much. Yeah. So you start as an archaeologist or something of that ilk. Mm-hmm. You're on this river, you meet a strange woman and you go into this ruins to explore, and then you end up in this city from the past, and things are not as they seem.
I see.
And you end up interacting. Well, you talk a lot about Greek and Roman gods, and so if you're interested in that sort of thing, it's really good, which I am. And yeah, you have to figure out what's going on and try and get out.
Sounds pretty cool. I'm going to let you carry on talking because my number 2 pick is Subnautica, which
Okay.
I'll let you do your thing on Subnautica first.
Yeah, that's fair. I really enjoyed Subnautica. I should say I'm enjoying. I haven't finished it. I've had quite a big break from it now, and I think at some point I definitely will go back to it. But when I was playing it, yeah, I was like playing a lot of it. I loved the exploring, so that was great. I had no idea what to expect when I went into it, and it was definitely better than what I was expecting. There's quite a lot to do. You get to craft stuff, which I didn't realize was a thing. Build your own sort of base, which is cool. Sort of completely unnecessary in a way. Like you didn't know it was going to be part of the game, but it is, and it's a nice thing. Yeah, I'll let you take over because you've played through.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, the environments are stunning. The different biomes and creatures you can find and explore and interact with are all really, really good. The story beats all land really well, particularly towards the end, which I won't go into any more detail than that because Charlotte has not finished. But the last chunk of the game really switches it up from exploring to story-based, which was a really welcome change because at that point the exploring was getting slightly frustrating. But by that point it was just like, right, bam, it's basically a straight line from here onwards and you can get to the end, which is lovely. The Leviathans are massive creatures that will kill you instantly, and they're really scary, which I think is kind of like I was talking about the Emmys in Metroid Dread. That kind of genuine fear factor is really interesting in the game for me. And there's also a really, really unsettling moment where you are deep enough that you can't see which way is up, which is something I'm genuinely scared of in real life. And being able to do that and feeling that fear while playing a video game is really interesting. But yeah, the navigation, like I said, it did become a bit of a chore towards the end, and it's really tough. I think, like I said, at the very least, these top 2 games could be either way around. Subnautica is really good though. Dan, did you watch Charlotte playing it at all?
Yeah, I was trying to help. I mean, not like my marine knowledge is very good. In fact, my alien marine knowledge is even worse. But yeah, it's one of those where it doesn't really give you a great deal to work with. It just sort of drops you in and it's like, sort yourself out. Yeah, I mean, Charlotte's playing it quite consistently for some time, so that's generally a good sign.
Yeah, and I think unlike Grounded is effectively the same thing, only it's insects rather than fish. But Grounded doesn't have that underlying story that kind of says this is what you should probably be doing now. And that extra direction that Subnautica gives you really helps you to kind of find everything and find your way around the world. I will quickly say, Subnautica Below Zero, I've also played this year, and it slightly disappointed me. It's effectively all the same stuff, but because it's effectively the same stuff, it didn't have that wow factor. It didn't really blow me away. I think it is probably objectively worse than Subnautica, but yeah.
That's quite interesting.
I haven't finished it. I'm in a similar spot that Charlotte is for the original, actually, with Below Zero. I'm in a place where I've been trying to find my way through this like amethyst cavern. It's beautiful. I've been trying to find my way around it, and there's a leviathan, and I can't effectively explore and find where I'm supposed to go because I'm constantly ducking away from the leviathan, which is a bit of a pain. But similar, I would love to go back to it and try again. So before we get on to our number one games of the year, I asked a question at the start of this video discussion about a word to describe the year. I said evolution as one of my words. And that's because this year I've had this sort of running theme where I've been looking back at old stuff and seeing how it's grown through the years. We did a brief stint of Yu-Gi-Oh! Evolution, where we had a look at how Yu-Gi-Oh! Changed from the very early days up until sort of the end of the first series. We did a similar thing with Netrunner. Skyrim, obviously, is a big evolution from where it was when I first played it to now. Pokemon Snap, big evolution. Back 4 Blood is a huge evolution on Left 4 Dead, which we will presumably be talking about in a minute. And I did the Pokemon Flying Evolutions run, where I played through Pokemon Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, Platinum, Black, X, Sun, and Shield, I think. Using flying types and seeing how they evolved. And yeah, I think a lot of the games that we've played, or I've played this year, have been very iterative, very evolved. They've changed a lot since we played them the first time or experienced their old versions. And I think it's interesting actually that you were talking about Forza Horizon 4 being worse than Forza 5.
Yeah.
And you kind of missed
The other
this.
way around.
Sorry, yeah. Subnautica 2, Below Zero, I think is actually worse than Subnautica 1. Not by much, but it doesn't have the same impact. So I wanted to ask you, are there any games you've played this year that are a significant step up to what you've experienced in the past? Whether that's like spiritual successors or whole new worlds.
Oh.
You've stumped us.
So I guess we'll start with a question to Dan. You have started playing roguelikes this year.
Yeah.
That is a whole new realm of games that I don't think you'd touched at all before this year, had you?
No.
Why?
Game Pass is the
Okay,
easy
yeah.
answer. It's also the sort of cheating answer. I think so. Partly it's because I guess the way that we're playing games has undergone a little bit of a change as well, where not necessarily playing one thing a lot and playing a lot of things a little. So roguelikes actually kind of help with that because you don't need to remember where you are in the story or anything like that really, because you sort of start fresh every time you boot up, which can be quite helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have gone from not playing effectively any to playing all of them. So, yeah.
And I think as well for you, you've beforehand you would play one game pretty religiously, and then we would have, you know, like a multiplayer game that we'd play as well, or you know.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of games in rotation at all times now.
We do.
I mean, Dan, you tend to play about 5 in a sitting. Some days.
That is true. Yeah. My habits have changed somewhat, evolved.
And also, I was in two minds whether to ask you this in case this spoils it, but I'm pretty confident this isn't your game of the year, so I'm going to ask, why is the progress bar not on your list?
Maybe I should have gone for it for an honourable mention. Yeah, like a download, me, like a download. Because it's remiss to call it a game of the year when it's it's the game of every year. So yeah, that's my justification for that.
Charlotte, what about you? How do you think you would summarize the games you've played this year?
Well, I think, like I said at the beginning, mostly just the sheer quantity is so much higher than I've ever played. And there's been a lot of good stuff in there. And I think the amazing thing about Game Pass is that I just wouldn't have played most of those games because you don't try your luck at something when you have to spend sort of 60 quid on it. So
Oh yeah, the number of games that all three of us have downloaded, booted up for like 10 minutes and been like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly. It's so nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, you've sort of represented the indie space in this discussion.
Yeah, it wasn't expected, but I have.
Which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, it's been a lot of I've never really played anything like that. I've never picked up small odd games that I've not seen before and just given them a go because I think I play more and more games each year, but like I say, I've never really been confident enough to just try something on a whim when you have to pay for it. So yeah.
Cool. We are at number 1. I really, really think there are about 5 options for Dan's Game of the Year. Please put us out of our misery.
Okay. My game of the year is Hades.
Hades. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, see, now you heard it, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm interested to know what you think should have been at the top of my list that wasn't, though.
Well, yeah, all right. Before you dive into Hades, yeah. I thought Civ would be on there somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought... oh, God. There are definitely other things.
I think the thing with Civ is you've played it a lot before.
Yeah. I couldn't remember exactly what the timeline for that was.
I think it was actually my game of the year last year.
Yeah, I think I might have done.
Yeah.
And that's why I was going to give it an honourable mention, but you've kind of done that for me, so thank you.
When you said earlier that we're going to go to war over this, or whatever you said, I thought, oh, it's Civ. It's got to be Civ.
No. We'll come back to that comment because that's still going to be relevant.
Oh yeah.
But Hades, I mean, pretty much the way to go with this is that 100%ed it. In a world where Game Pass is the thing, 100%ing a game is basically unheard of because why would you when you could play some more of a different game?
Yeah, that last like 20 to 50% of the game. In a lot of cases, it's about 1/10 as fun as the rest of the game.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So the fact that I was even doing that is sort of crazy, really. It's like it's a roguelike. The gameplay loop is like super fun. You are constantly encouraged to go back in. All the Greek mythology stuff is good. It's actually pretty funny in places. It's pretty tricky as well.
It is.
I think it's, yeah. I actually don't think it's as hard as a fair amount of other roguelikes. But it is definitely tricky.
Yeah, from my experience with it, it's easier than Binding of Isaac, but a lot more interesting.
Yeah, so that's the gig, really. What I also think is kind of interesting is the it being roguelike, but there being, I I think I've read the number somewhere, but I can't quite remember what the number is, of how many unique pieces of dialogue there are in the game. But basically, no two runs are even remotely the same. There are some characters that I'm pretty sure I haven't even seen half of their dialogue, which is just ludicrous. So,
and it is a really well-made game as well. The visuals of it are they are unique, but also really well refined, I guess is the word I'd use.
Yep.
I would like to ask, does it qualify as a roguelike? Because you're not really starting again every time.
You're not.
But then you're not in any roguelike, are you? Because you kind of unlock extra things.
Yeah, so this is where my top two conflict. So I'd actually argue Slay the Spire is probably the most. If your definition of roguelike is you start again from the beginning every time, then Slay the Spire is about as close to that as you can get, because
it's pretty pure, isn't it?
The meta progression is done in the first. By the time you've beaten a run a couple of times, you've unlocked most of the cards, and that's it. The whole game.
Do you think it's about as far as I got with Slay?
Higher difficulties, and the only improvement then is for you as a player, which can be interesting. But yeah, it's so Hades. By that kind of logic, Hades is not as pure a roguelike. But I mean, I'd say it fills the same kind of void, if you see what I mean. Same space.
Yeah, it's definitely a roguelike, I think. Because you as a character, you don't carry over any of your abilities as such.
No.
So yeah. Is there a reason why Hades won over Slay the Spire?
Mostly because literally really the reason was that I 100%ed Hades and I haven't managed to 100% Slay the Spire yet. I also think that Hades just has a little bit more in the way of options for customizing your runs. You're a little bit more at the mercy of the RNG for Slay the Spire. I can walk into a Hades run and be fairly confident that I can get through it regardless of what I'm given, whereas sometimes with Slay the Spire on the higher ascension levels, I feel like I'm really fighting the game to try and sort of stay ahead. So that's the logic, really.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to do mine next because we all have something to say about Charlotte's Game of the Year, and I think there's going to be some arguments involved with it. So actually, before I do, does anyone know what I'm going to pick?
No.
I don't think I know.
It's Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Oh.
So, objectively, this game is probably worse than every other game any of us have talked about. But, if I'm being really honest, the game I've had the best experience with this year has been Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. It's kind of wrapped up in my whole Artists Against Abuse livestream weekend for the Dash charity, so it's got some sort of sentimental backing towards it. It's got genuine difficulty as well, even outside of doing a challenge run. Liam said that he lost against Cynthia in his vanilla playthrough. Smoky Prog, the Skuntank, has become one of my favourite Pokemon ever off the back of it, which does not happen very often. I'm currently doing the Revenge campaign to try and actually win the Chainlock challenge, which I think was Dan's idea in the first place. The type chaining.
for a game that I've never bought.
Yeah.
Um,
I've carried that torch for you.
Thanks.
And I think Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl could have been so much more. And realistically, it should have been so much more than it is. But I think most of the games on my list will have fallen into obscurity in my memory in 2 or 3 years' time. And I think that live stream weekend of playing Brilliant Diamond has cemented this game for me this year.
Makes sense.
The Artists Against Abuse live stream, and particularly doing this revenge campaign, which I am going to win. I am going to win this Nuzlocke. I am. Feels somewhat like the conclusion of my journey this year, from being in a really bad place to now I am here and able to take on a pretty significant challenge. And I'm going to win. But you haven't played it, either of you.
Dan is disconnected. He'll be back with us in a second.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
no, I'm back.
Yeah, Dan, you haven't played it, but you were on the fence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What could Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl have done to make you want to play it?
Ooh, now you're asking.
Because I won't lie, there is a hell of a lot of stuff that they should have done. A hell of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think part of the problem for me was that the originals, hilariously, I played the originals, I liked the originals, I never loved them. So it needed to not just be the originals, but with some improvements. So it being the originals without the improvements was a little bit of a death knell.
Yeah, it kind of falls back. We had this discussion, weirdly, with Link's Awakening as well, where Link's Awakening is a one-for-one remake of a good game brought into the modern era. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is the same thing. It is a one-to-one remake of a solid Pokemon game, some people's favourite Pokemon game. And if you consider that, how am I phrasing this? If Diamond and Pearl, the originals, were in your top 10 favourite Pokemon games, or were your favourite Pokemon games ever, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are objectively better than them. There's nothing that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl does that makes you think, oh, I wish I was playing the original. Yeah. Other than maybe the art style, I'm willing to accept that people don't like it. I think it's really nice. But, you know, that's me. And Charlotte, did you ever consider buying it?
No.
No.
No, I can't really get on with Pokemon games these days. My first one was Omega Ruby, really enjoyed it. I played Sun and Moon after that, and then tried to play Ultra Sun, and it was just the same. And I kind of find that's true of all Pokemon games, really, and for me it doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate that it does for many people. So.
Yeah, I think the core Pokemon experience is stale for me, but the offshoots of that, the different ways you can play, the challenges, the team compositions, all of that jazz, the Pokemon formula can basically be whatever it can be, as vanilla as they can make it. And I think it's just good enough that I'll enjoy it in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
But while we're here, unless we have anything else to say about BDSP, mostly Dan, you've done a lot of competitive Pokemon Sword and Shield this year.
Yeah, I was going to honourable mention that actually. It was probably in my list somewhere last year. I can't quite remember where, but Yeah, loads and loads. Bizarrely, probably just because of the accessibility, competitive Pokemon's in quite a good place right now.
Yeah. I've done a couple with mixed results, mixed levels of enjoyment, but I would wager Sword and Shield, despite I think being some of your least favourite Pokemon games, or most critical perhaps is a better way of putting it, you've got something like 1,300 hours in Pokemon Shield.
It is a lot. Yep. Yeah. They did kind of pull. I think it's one of those things where you can make a lot of errors that you weren't making before. And still make something that's good. I do think that the DLC is basically required, which isn't great.
Yeah, certainly for competitive, you kind of need some of the things that the DLC gives you.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I've definitely had a pretty good time on competitive this year, particularly my boy Regigigas.
Yeah, Wheezing Gigas has become like your mantra in life.
Yeah, it has, and I'm pretty happy with that.
So that leaves us on to Charlotte, and
Drum roll.
yeah, it's not. We've kind of established it's Back for Blood.
Yeah. But I don't know if you guys were surprised by that as my top pick.
I definitely am.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Yeah. I think for me, the thing is that on its own, I mean, certainly not the best game I've played. But for me, the fact that we can all pick it up together pretty easily. You jump straight into the game, no faffing about. We can have as many runs going as we want at any one time. We can play with sort of a full team of 4 of us, or if not everyone's available, you know, you can play in bits. And I don't know, it's nice that we can do something that easily together, you know.
I do think there are games that we play, maybe not on our list at the moment, but there are games that we play that we're like, oh, we can't play that right now because Harry's not online, or we can't play that right now because this. Whereas Back 4 Blood is versatile enough, and because it's co-op and it's not competitive, you can go into it with any mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I could be, oh, I'm stressed, let's go and kill some zombies, or I fancy something chill so we can chat at the same time. But, like, if you do want something a bit more challenging, like, put us on veteran and we're garbage, so
yeah,
we're going to have that challenge when we decide we want to do it, you know. So yeah, I don't think it's the best game, but one I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasise here that this isn't the objective best game of the year 2021. This is our favourite game. It's our opinion. At me. In fact, please do at me on Twitter. In the comments. Shout. Tell me how much of an idiot I am. There's no such thing as bad publicity. But yeah, it doesn't have to be the best game.
No,
it's the game we've enjoyed the most.
Really enjoyable. We've had lots of laughs. It's one that I'm like, if I'm having a long day at work, I'm like, oh, it's fine because we can chill and do that later. You know.
I've got written down here. It's just a plain fun co-op experience.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need, you know.
So I've got a quick follow-up question. So does that mean that the reason that it's ended up above Knockout City in your list is because it's versus like enemies rather than players? Would you say? Or...
I think that is a contributing factor, yes, because it's a lot less frustrating when you lose.
Yeah, I've got Back 4 Blood above Knockout for the same reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really, really enjoyed Knockout. But I always had those occasions where I would just get really frustrated with it, or we didn't have the right number of people, or you know, it's just a pain. Whereas for that, it's quite chill if you want it to be.
I think psychology hat on for a second. Just the fact that you're against other real life people makes it inherently you're not. Well, it's pretty clear when we were playing Knockout the other day. We were having conversations, and then we had to stop those conversations to concentrate so that we were focused and trying our best to win.
Yeah.
Which
you don't do that, you can just hang out together and play a game at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of shows how they could be bots in Knockout City, and it would completely change the way we think about it. But because it's real people, we're getting a real rank. Back for Blood, you lose, and you're like, oh, well, we lost. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even when we play as a 3 and we get a random to play with, we've had a couple of occasions early on where they were actually good and they tried, and that was quite fun. And also occasions where they're complete garbage or they're doing something that's really frustrating us. But even if that's annoying, we can often have a laugh about it. And it doesn't feel too sort of...
And the three of us are generally capable of propping it up.
Yeah, you don't really need a full team.
On
normal. Veterans, another story.
So, on the stark contrast of Charlotte's Game of the Year, Dan, you put it 9th.
Mm.
Would you like to
explain yourself?
Expand on that?
Well, I mean, maybe it's just because. I mean, I will say that they've added a few things recently that have made it a little bit friendlier. When we first joined it, we had to like double mute each other because we were showing up in party chat and like
the
in-game chat. They also have like retrospectively changed how cards work, which can be a bit of a pain. I mean, on the whole, for me, it wasn't a case of whether Back 4 Blood was like high up or like whether it actually went on the list, which isn't to say that it's bad, but just that there was lots of other stuff that was vying for the same position. So,
So for me, I think the deck building, the fact that they added deck building into a zombie game, is like who thought of that, man? Yeah. Who sat down and thought, do you know what these zombies need more of? Trading cards. And I think the deck building could be expanded. It's not perfect. There are, I think, because of the difficulty level we play on, the cards are often just pick the 10, 15 best cards that you have, plus 1 or 2 that change the way you play. Obviously, that's different for you, Dan, because yours is very archetypal. Yeah. Same as with Knockout, it's got the hub world that we can muck about on, which it causes a great amount of entertainment. Again, like you said, Dan, the devs are still patching it and kind of fixing up bugs and adding new features, which is nice. It's nice to see that they actually care enough to fix your game. But I think what holds it back for me is the mandatory online with random people usually has a pretty significant impact on the game.
Yeah.
And the pin mechanics as well are frustrating. I play as a character who's resistant to the pinning, and it's frustrating to me. So there are some problems with it. But I think it is an excellent reboot of Left 4 Dead. Captures all the same vibes, all of the zombiness. There's actually quite a lot of ridden as well, the zombies, the infected. There's a lot of them. It's not like it's in Dead Island, which me and Dan quite enjoyed back in the day. The zombies weren't that plentiful.
No.
Whereas this is like a proper, we're going to throw hordes and hordes of zombies at you now.
Yeah, arguably the hordes themselves are a bit overtuned. I think the devs themselves have said that it's a bit overtuned.
Yeah. And the devs have also acknowledged the special ridden, what they call, well, the mutations
Not very
don't
special.
quite work properly. They don't, yeah, like you say, they don't feel special. They feel like just another enemy in the horde. But they're not. I mean, they're good. It's not like they individually ruin the experience. It's just that specifically in Left 4 Dead, it was 99% normal infected, and then you'd get one special one that completely changes the game. Whereas here, it's just like they're all mixed together. They just hang out, do stuff and things,
Yeah, it feels like you're very rarely in a situation where there are no special ridden on the screen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our closing statements, is there any game that didn't make the lists that we expected to? We've already talked a bit about Forza 5. Any other games that you thought would come up that didn't?
Honestly, nothing from me, I don't think.
I think for me, just the two I've mentioned, Horizon 5 and Flight Simulator.
Oh yeah. There are a few games that we played that I think should have been good enough to be on the list. Stuff like Marvel's Avengers, they've got enough money to make that game so much better.
Yeah, there's no real excuse for it not being up there.
Forza 5 was on my list of things that probably should have been better. But no, I think that's probably about it. I'm really pleased with how diverse our picks are, actually.
Yeah, it's nice.
Other than Back 4 Blood and Knockout City, we've only got a couple that double up. So we've got a solid 25 games across the three of us. That's amazing. What a year.
That is crazy.
So there we have it. That's our top 10 games, or top 25-ish games of 2021. There has been a hell of a lot going on this year, and next year there are so many good games coming out. We've got brain paralysis. There's stuff like Slime Rancher 2. Help me out here, guys. Legends Arceus. Breath of the Wild 2. That's going to be quite cool. So
the Halo Infinite campaign.
Stuff like Back 4 Blood will continue to get updates.
Yep, that is true.
All sorts. We might even get Generation 9 in Pokemon.
That'd be mad, wouldn't it?
It would be mad. Personally, I'm hoping for a Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl style remake of Heart Gold Soul Silver. But I mean, that's a bit of a pipe dream. Anyway, 2022 is going to be really exciting. And we've got lots of cool stuff to look forward to. Any closing remarks?
None from me.
No.
No, well, thank you ever so much for joining me today and the rest of this year. Thank you for watching, liking and subscribing. Make sure you do that. And if you have made it to this far in the video, after an hour and a half maybe, minimum, then thank you ever so much for your support this year. And we'll see you next year. Ciao for now.